As I stand here today, looking at a stage and an audience full of people, staring down the dark void of eventual adulthood and responsibility, let us recognise the value and preciousness of an innocent child's life. That's why Danny and I are incredibly proud to stand in the proposition of this motion. A few things to clarify before we get into our stance. We're defending one individual, ordinary individual, no one special, who just happens to have $1,000 lying around. This is not someone like MDG who have shitloads made up about them. This is an ordinary person whose decisions don't affect anyone other than themselves and the people to whom they're donating their money making this choice. So, if you have extensions about economic reconstruction, population pyramids, I'm sorry, this isn't a debate. Rather, we're focusing on the individual principle of whether it's a better allocation of this $1,000 based on whatever principle you determine to maximise whatever you deem is particularly valuable. We acknowledge there's much uncertainty whether a child will survive, whether treatment for particular adults will work or won't work. We're going to assume this debate to be the best possible case for either side of the house. So, as the info slide says, on our side the child lives a full and happy life. On the other side of the house, the adults live an extra 10 years in addition to how long they would have already lived. Hopefully that's all clear. If there's any clarifications, feel free to let me know. So we're going to talk about three things in this space. Three independent principles for why one ought to act in this particular matter. Firstly, we want to talk specifically about quality of life. Why this is a metric through which we should adjudicate how to maximise people's happiness and how to donate one's money. Secondly, talk explicitly in utilitarian terms. And thirdly, talk about the obligation that people owe to the future. So let's first talk about the quality of life. Because we say that life has meaning beyond just existing. Life has meaning beyond just living. There are conditions where life is not worth living. One is in a concentration camp, for instance. And there are conditions where life is more worth living or less worth living. That's why we recognise the institutions of things like human rights as being particularly valuable. It's why sentience isn't enough for a principle. It's why we don't grant rights to animals, even though many of them express sentience. Therefore, the question of this debate ought to be, how does one maximise one's quality of life and fill that life with happiness? 4 reasons why we do this better than any other team in this debate. Firstly, children uniquely can live a unique and full life. There's a range of experiences that human beings can have based on their age. You can experience the joy of learning to read, the joy of first learning many things about the world, the joy of becoming a parent. All of these things happen at various stages during one's life and are all independently valuable and independently worth experiencing. We say at a point at which adults experience the majority of these, as we imagine these people will be around the age of sort of 50 or 60 or so, then we think children's ability to experience these things ought to be prioritised. Secondly, we say that young lives specifically have more potential. People try to create the best possible life for themselves. They have particular projects, be that spending far too much time doing debating, or be that trying to raise the best possible family you can. And all of these individual choices, people ought to have a right to pursue and maximise. Once again, these adults have already had an opportunity to do so, and these children have not. No thank you. Thirdly, children can uniquely maximise the quality of life of others. Obviously, in general, if you're a reasonably nice person, being around you is probably a nice thing and maximising the quality of life of others. But we tell you, children are unique in this respect. Children inspire the kind of devotion and love from other people that we say can only be gained by that primal innocence that only they possess. The value of being a parent, or a grandparent, or an uncle is a unique and powerful human experience that we say ought not to be denied to people, and the existence of these children is likely to spread that quality of life to others far more effectively than any other individual did, especially because these children will later grow up and spread that quality of life as adults as well. But fourthly, finally, and potentially most importantly, we say that quality of life for the poorest in the world in 40 or 50 years is likely to be substantially higher than it is right now, and therefore, purely on this basis, we ought to prioritise this. Why is this true? Firstly, in general, economic growth trends are going in a positive direction. The vast majority of developing world nations are growing somewhere between 5 and 10% a year, which means that the quality of life these children will experience in 30 years when they're adults and starting their own families are likely to always be substantially higher than those otherwise. You see, other trends are likely to accelerate this. The spread of democracies around the world means they're likely to live in more free and less politically repressive regimes. The spread of technologies means they're more likely to have GMO foods, be able to live a full, happy, healthy life, not be hungry, and the spread of countless other norms around the world, we say overwhelmingly point to a better and brighter future that these children ought to be able to live in. So that's the first principle I want to talk about. Before I go on, yes?
Most scientists say in the next 20 years or so, most countries will be underwater. Most countries that currently produce oil will be desert. Why will this child's life be good?
Yeah, so I think it's probably a slight exaggeration. Look, here's the important thing. Obviously, global warming is a challenge we have to face. What is, however, true is that countless billions of people live in poverty right now. Yes, global warming will create economic challenges. Yes, it may make life in certain individual nations more difficult. We still say the general secular trends of economic growth point in a positive direction. We still say that in general the situation is often so dire for the poor that the factual improvements that we're likely to see are in fact going to be very important. Secondly then, let's talk about utilitarianism. Let's say they contest our principle, say the only thing that matters is sentience. Why do we care about this? Firstly, math. Look, these people are likely to live for longer than 50 years. 50 years is 5 times 10. If you purely want to adjudicate and be impartial about the quality of life, we say privilege our side. But also, the marginal impact of these years is very substantial. We say that in general, 10 extra years after you've already lived all of life's experiences are likely to be far, far less valuable and interesting to you. And indeed, scientific studies have shown that people perceive time going faster as they get older because they've already lived so many new experiences, and people generally feel new experiences more powerfully and feel that time passes for them more slowly and more potently. Thirdly then, and finally, I want to talk about the obligations of the future. Because ultimately, we didn't emerge from this world in a vacuum. We didn't emerge from this world simply, like Athena and Zeus's head. Rather, we were brought into this world by past generations. We were brought into this world by our parents, by our guardians, by our caretakers, whoever they may be. People who devoted countless hours and countless aspects of their time to taking care of us. We say that obligation to pass on what there is of humanity to future generations exists too. And therefore, for the person donating this amount of money, the same way that we think parenting is a morally worthwhile activity because passing on humanity is a good thing, the same way that we think that adoption is a morally worthwhile activity because passing on humanity is a good thing, we say for these individual people too, children should be prioritized because we have an obligation to the future. Children should be prioritized because fundamentally we ought to care about helping the world to start off with. So what exactly have we shown you in this debate? We've shown you, first of all, that quality of life is the most important metric. If they want to contest any of their benefits, they must first prove why quality of life is not important. Even if they do so, even if they prove that utilitarianism is in fact a better way to adjudicate the world, our mathematical proofs and our marginal impacts still stand further. Even if you don't believe in any of that, even if you believe in an obligation-centered version of morality, we say the obligations that individual human beings possess in the future are more powerful than anything else. For that reason, we're incredibly proud to oppose.
Opening government is remarkably prescient. They are correct that we believe, outside opening opposition, that utilitarianism should be the defining metric by which we use our donations. They are correct, and also, moreover, that we believe that the moral worth of an adult vastly outstrips the moral worth of children. That's what we are going to bring to you on side opening opposition today. We are going to explain to you why it is that we think that utilitarianism ought to be the metric by which we should use these types of donations or decide whether to donate. Second off, why under that adults have more moral worth than children. And third, why even if we care more about children than adults, that we think we better accomplish on our side of the house. Before we do that, substantial amounts of rebuttal. First claim we hear from opening governments is that quality of life is the best way that we should be able to determine morality. And the extent of the justification for this is intuition pumping. That is, that we should only care about, if we only care about life, and we only base it on sentience, then we give rights to animals. I don't understand how this is a syllogism. I say we should be giving rights to animals, and we should be caring about them. Like, ultimately, I think the reason why we care about quality of life is that someone needs to be able to experience it, which means at the same time we think that life is incredibly important, but at the same time that the extent to which this quality of life matters depends on their level of sentience and their ability to experience things, which means we think that we should ultimately not be preferencing one type of experience over that of another as long as they can experience it to the same extent. Then what are some of the other weaker warrants as well? First, they say that adults already have certain experiences with the majority of learning, so they've already experienced certain things. Unclear to me why it is that this desert claim is being made, given how it's not substantiated at all. It's unclear to me why certain people are entitled to other things. At the end of the day, I think that if one person gets happiness from one thing, and another person gets happiness from joy of learning, I don't understand why we should be preferencing one or the other. But then they say, look, children spark devotion and loving in others. This is certainly the case. It would be very difficult for me to contest this. But note that I think that ultimately, and this is a sad fact, that adults simply know more people than children do because they've been on Earth for much longer. So at that point, if we're considering about the externalities that happen on other people, I think that's just another reason why we should preference the moral worth of adults. Then they say the quality of life in the future is likely to be a lot higher. I like the POI we heard from closing here, but it doesn't even, in order to believe this is false, you don't even need to believe that climate change is going to be that apocalyptic. Note that although economic growth trends in the status quo are very promising, this isn't true in most very malaria-stricken countries. In most parts of the developing world here, it isn't particularly promising, and we've seen how life expectancy has not meaningfully changed in the last 50 years in most of the world. But moreover, and here's the most important problem with this argument, which is that note that we're just making this decision from the perspective of an individual donor. Note that, as I think OG correctly points out, children are a lot more sympathetic than adults. This is why we're taking a very strong moral stand to this round. This is important because it means that if you don't donate your individual $1,000 to a type of malaria foundation or a malaria charity, someone else is likely to donate to it because people care a lot about children in a way they're much less likely to care about adults. Which means that insofar as most of these charities, particularly small, note that the highest rated charity on GiveWell, the AMF, doesn't have the ability to distribute that much of the money. We think that ultimately your dollars are going to go a lot further if you donate to a charity that other people are a lot less likely to donate to. But then they say that we win under this utilitarian calculus because we're saving more number of years of life. Note that they just don't think this is true in most countries, given how in most countries that have malaria, the life expectancy is not meaningfully larger than 50 years, and given how most people who die of malaria are not 0 years old, they're like 7, 8, 9, we don't think they're actually substantially saving more lives overall or more years of life. I think it's likely to be equivalent. Their third argument says that we have obligations to the future. We ought to protect them. We're going to contest that when we go on to our case. But note that we're going to posit here that the best protectors of the future are adults. The adults are the ones who raise children. The adults are the ones who bring in money to be able to help and uplift the community. So if we want to have a good future, we need to be able to save the lives so they can help bring and uplift the next generation. I will now take closing.
Who has more control over money and political capital? Adults or children?
I think you know the answer to that question. The question is, this is fairly important as we're going to get on to our second argument, but before we do that, let's just establish why it is that we believe adults have a lot more moral worth than children. We believe that in general, our intuitions say that we base our moral worth on certain type of factors, things like consciousness, self-awareness, continued sense of self, etc. This is why, for instance, we don't afford rights to things like rocks or other inanimate objects, even though because they can't experience it in the same ways. But we do, I think, or I hope, care about animals to a certain extent, but don't care about them to the same extent that we care about humans, because their level of consciousness and the ability to which they can experience pain, which I think intuitively we all think is bad, is substantially less. So why do we think this is very important for the round? First off, we would posit that children are much less likely to be self-aware, or they're certainly self-aware to a certain extent, but to a comparatively lesser degree than they are for adults. Moreover, adults are much more likely to have future projects that cannot get actualized if they're likely to die, or are going to die much quicker in a way that children do not, because they have less ability to plan for the future. In that regard, we think that on a purely utilitarian basis, we do think that adults are more well worth. Moreover, if we also care about the externalities that happen to other people, as I alluded to earlier, insofar as people, adults, literally have larger social networks and no more people, we also think harming them, therefore, carries more and moral worth. But even if you don't believe that, we say that on our side of the house, if you do care about the children, you should still be voting side opposition, because we actually think we save more children's lives on our side of the house. Note that in most of the developing world, most adults have multiple children, which means that if they die, it creates substantial harms to a large number of children. What are those types of harms? First off, these children literally lose at a very impersonal level a large amount of income, which means in many cases make it much harder for them literally to survive if they cannot get medical treatment, they cannot get food, etc., but also substantially degrades their quality of life if they cannot go to school, they cannot do other things that children want to do, and which OG purports to care so much about. But second off, if they do lose a substantial source of income, we think in much of the developing world what happens is that the child has to work. They have to work at farms, they have to work in factories. We think that if we care about quality of life, we think it's terrible to subject a child to that. But very importantly, note, this argument is not dependent on the person whose life we are saving actually being a parent. Why is this the case? First off, note that we think in the general case that adults play a very important role in community. They help uplift the economy in local communities, but they also often act as teachers for other individuals, which helps children get that joy of learning that OG says is so important. But second off, note that we would posit in most of the developing world today that people live in extended families. So even if the person whose life you're saving is not 30 years old, is not 40 years old, that is typical parenting ages, the fact that in many cases, in the vast majority of cases, they live in communities or they live in households in which children are present means it's much more likely that the child actually has an adult in their life, or has fewer adults in their life who can actually allow them to live that long life. Which means that at the end of the day, we think that what happens when you deprive these children of their parents is that they're much more less likely to live a long life. They're much less likely to live a long and fulfilled life. Their quality of life is lower. Their length of life is lower, which is why we are so proud to oppose this motion.